This is me creating a level in my custom level editor running within GameMaker 2. It can edit lighting and parallax backgrounds in real time, and also supports dynamic variable saving and loading. So how did I get here? Hi, I'm Alec, a computer engineering student, and this is the start of a new bi-weekly series following the development of my game Nesus, made in GameMaker Studio 2. Nesus started as a simple platformer game with one distinct gameplay element. The radius of vision was very limited. This made platforming and combat much more difficult, as players were unable to foresee what they were going to do. The game continued to evolve around this idea, and I created a combat system with simple enemies and platforming obstacles. Shortly thereafter, the game was released onto Steam Greenlight. Feedback was harsh and unrelenting, and the game's debut was a hard reality check. I was devastated. The comments were not meritless hate but valid concerns, but at the time I didn't see it like that. Instead, I lost all hope for the project and abandoned it to work on other projects. After working on other projects, I decided to revisit Nesus, and to my surprise, the game actually got greenlit. I had a completely different vision for the game, so much so that the two versions were almost completely unrelated. I am not sure why I kept the games under the same name. The only similarity was that Nesus was still going to be a hack-and-slash adventure game, but with a completely different story and objective. I started by creating a character sprite, and after several iterations, I was happy. Following the creation of the character, I created a simple lighting system. I was very inspired by the hues of Hyperlight Drifter, a game that has been a huge inspiration to me in general. The lighting system in Nesus uses surfaces and sprites with specific blend modes, a common technique for lighting in GameMaker. I would then place light objects within the level and would modify the instance's color within GameMaker's room editor to change its color. To change the radius of the light, I would modify the radius variable within the instance in the room editor. In this specific instance, I made the light purple, and you can kind of notice it on the left light there. After the lighting system was complete, I created a parallax background system, which is basically this pseudo 3D look that you see in the background here. I used free backgrounds that I found online to test the functionality of the parallax system. The backgrounds also had the capability to move, which made things like this possible. Here, only the backgrounds are actually moving, so it gives the illusion that the train is moving. However, I soon realized that there were many things wrong with my workflow, most noticeably the way parallax backgrounds were created. I had to manually define all of the values for the parallax without actually seeing what was happening. It was so inefficient and so frustrating, and it was such a terrible workflow. The same exact thing applied to the lighting system. I couldn't see the changes that I was making to the lights in real time, so I had to recompile the game every time I wanted to make a change to the lights. I tried to convince myself that the system was okay and that I could deal with it, but it resulted in so much lost time that I just lost motivation completely to work on the project. In the beginning of 2020, my friend Nate and I went up to Yosemite for New Year's, and it was on this trip that I weighed my options for Nesus. There were only really two options: to use a different game engine that could accommodate my needs for parallax and lighting, or to create a custom in-game level editor. I decided to create a custom in-game level editor because I did not want to take the time to recreate the game in a different engine. It was the perfect solution. I wouldn't have to recompile the game every time I wanted to make a change, and I can automate everything about the creation of levels so that I wouldn't have to do repetitive tasks that disrupt my workflow. Oh, and I could add literally anything to my editor. UI was difficult in the beginning, but early on I found IamGUI GML, a port of the popular Dear IamGUI development UI framework, perfect for creating editors. For months I worked with more drive than I ever had in game development, and despite being in school I managed to spend 5 to 8 hours daily working on the editor. I incorporated the basic necessities first: systems for placing tiles and objects, and a layer system of object and tile layers, with saving specifically in mind. I incorporated tile brush sizes in addition to making it so that you could place tiles from different tile sets on the same layer. Surprisingly, this is not something you can do in GameMaker's native editor. Internally, tiles are represented by DS grids, and there are 2 DS grids per layer. One grid holds the tile index while the other holds the tile set index. After tile and object editing was possible, I had to make it possible to run levels. To do so, I've created a system called the editor runtime. This system deactivates all of the helper objects of the editor, including the object placeholders, and creates all of the instances based on the locations of those object placeholders. Tiles did not need to be loaded as they were already loaded in by the editor. Now that I had completed the editor runtime, I had to find a way to run a level separate from the editor. As of now, the game needed the editor to run, as it stored many of the data structures and information necessary to run a level. I created a new system dubbed just the runtime, which was a little more work, and it runs in a separate room than the editor. The runtime must wipe itself of any old level content, load the tile data, and finally load the instance data, keeping saved variables and save information in mind. I had to recreate the data structures and systems provided by the editor, but in a standalone manner. Several days later, I completed the runtime, and the foundations for the level editor were complete. Afterward, I sought to solve the issues that plagued me in the first place. First, the parallax editor. I could now adjust the values of the file in real time and readjust the values based on what I was seeing. I then added the lighting system into the editor, allowing me to view the effects of the lighting in real time and adjust the lighting values accordingly. The work on the level editor was finally starting to pay off. Next, I added the instance variable editor, allowing for the setting and saving of specific instance variables. I'm demonstrating this by giving this sentinel 50 HP instead of the regular 10, and I'm doing this through the variable editor here. And as you can see, the sentinel has an insane amount of health compared to the other sentinels. Then I added the channel system, allowing for triggers to trigger a specific channel and instance variables to listen to specific channels. In this example, this trigger will trigger when the player enters this green box. And when he enters the green box, he sets the value of channel 0 to 1, or to 0. Then, the speed daemon listens to that channel and places its value in the visible variable. Of course, this could be any variable. I'm just showing it this way to demonstrate its power. Then I added the generic instance variable saving, which allowed me to save specific variables that would always be saved in an object, in addition to remembering that the object was created or destroyed during the runtime. In this example, I'm saving the X, Y, and HP variables of the object sentinel. Every time I start the game up again, the game remembers the HP and the X and Y positions of each sentinel. With the recent addition of the dialogue editor, the editor has become much more powerful than I originally thought, and now I can finally start working on what matters, the content. Thanks for watching. If you want a video showcasing the features of the editor in more detail, let me know by liking the video or leave a comment, and please subscribe and join my Discord to support the game.